Hi, I'm cKnoor and welcome to my second chapter in my Beginner's Guide to Blood Bowl 2. I know I promised I would cover murder in chapter 2. Unfortunately, I've played a bit of the in-game tutorial and I've decided that there are more important stuff that you, as a beginner, needs to know about. So today, we're going to be talking about player stat lines so we can learn what players are good and what players are less good. And then we're going to talk about assists, so we can get those sweet 2-die blocks, so we can actually murder people a bit more. So, part murder, but more, not murder. Maybe next episode we'll get to cover more murder. Who knows? Well, I do, but things change. Here we go. Before we do anything else, I feel like I have to cover the Blood Bowl player's stat line. And when I say stat line, I mean this 6338 that's currently on the screen. This is the stat line of a human lineman, which is by many considered to be the default stat line. The stats in the stat line are always in the same order. So first we have movement allowance, which in this case is 6, which allows the lineman to move 6 squares on the pitch. And then afterwards, of course, if he wants to, he can take 2 GFI actions and move 2 more squares. Then we got strength, which is in this case 3, which once again is the normal strength. If a piece has more than 3, it's considered to be a strong piece, and if it has less, it's considered to be a weak piece. Then agility, 3, bog standard again. If you have more, then you're probably an elf. If you have less, then you're probably a strong piece that can't handle the ball. Armor value, once again, an 8. It's average. If you've got less than that, you've got pretty weak armor. If you've got more, you're never going to get hurt. So why is this important? Well, it's important to help you evaluate what different pieces do. Now, 6338 might sound amazing if you're running a dwarf team where everyone is short and can't really run that far. And that's because one of the major drawbacks for the dwarfs are that they're slow. But on the other hand, they do get some extra skills starting out. As you can see, this human lineman have no skills at all and has only access to general skills when the lineman levels up. If the lineman rolls a double on his level up, then he can get agility, passing, or strength and has no access to mutations. So, pretty bog standard. For comparison, here's the human big guy, the ogre. The ogre has 5 movement, so still pretty mobile, but not a human lineman. Strength 5. No one's really going to be as strong as the big guys unless they're also a big guy. Agility 2 means that they're not that agile and they probably shouldn't be handling the ball because they're more likely to fumble. And armor value 9 means that even if they get knocked down, it'll be difficult for them to get injured. Now compare the skills to the human lineman and we can see that this ogre comes with a bunch of them. 5. Unfortunately, 2 of them are bad. But that's still 3 good skills, which Mighty Blow is the one that's actually used. Thick Skull means that you don't get knocked out as often, and Throw Teammate means that you can throw smaller goblins around, which the human ogre is never going to do anyways. He also only has access to Strength, which means that the ogre, unless he rolls a double when he levels up, can't get Block, which is one of the main bashy skills in the game. So that's a definite drawback. Let's compare it to one more player. So this is the Lizardman's Skink. Now the Skink has a movement of 8, so that's 2 squares faster than the human lineman, which means even with 2 GFIs, the human can just about keep up. The Skink only has to do 1 GFI to be sure that the human lineman can't catch up. And this is one of the main strategies you have when you've got weak but fast pieces. You try and run away from your opponent because your opponent usually has a lot lower movement. The Skink only has strength 2, so not that strong. I'll show you why that matters in a bit. Agility 3, still decent at handling the ball. Just as good as the human lineman. Armor value 7 though, slightly less than the human lineman. So, what can we say about the Skink? We can say that the Skink is fast and weak and easy to injure. We can talk about the Ogre and say that he's slow, strong, and harder to injure. And we can say about the human lineman that he's freakishly average and has no skills starting out. And from this, I think you have the ability to look at every positional in the game now and try and go like, oh, this guy's good at this, and this guy's good at that. Let's go on to tackle zones. Tackle zones are a pretty simple concept. It means that around every player on the pitch, the squares they are around, they exert what the game refers to as a tackle zone on it. So if an opponent tries to do something in those areas, like around Encyclopedia Brownie here, our Bretonian Blitzer, if cKnoor's was to do anything, it might be difficult to do things. Normally, these relate to agility stuff, like cKnoor's here, if he was standing here, he'd have to, if he wanted to go any further, he'd have to try and dodge. And if he dodged into a square where there aren't any tackle zones, it's easier. If you dodge into one when he's standing in one, it's going to be a -1. And as you can see up here, the game itself actually tells you how many of the opponent's tackle zones are in a specific square. Now this is pretty important for picking up the ball and ball handling and stuff like that. When it comes to dodging, tackle zones only matter if you dodge into them. It doesn't matter if you try and dodge out of them. So always try and, if you're going to dodge, you probably want to dodge out of tackle zones and not into them. And for figuring out assists. Now I've set up some different scenarios here, now that we know about tackle zones. So here we have Horatio Cake. Now Horatio Cake gets 1 die to block Vince Van Gogh for it. And the reason he gets that is because if we look at their strength stat, we can see that both of them are strength 3. And as we know, if I'm blocking someone and I have more strength than that person, I get 2 die. And pick one. And if we have the same strength, I get 1 die, and that's the result. And if I'm weaker, the other player has more strength, then I have to roll 2 dice, and my opponent picks one. And that's rarely good, because my opponent is always going to pick skull or something that ends my turn. Now, we can change the strength between 2 pieces by adding assists. So if we look over here, when Cake and Lacey wants to block Mr. Hadwick, Cake and Lacey gets 2 dice. And that's because Sherbet Holmes here has one of his tackle zones on the square where Mr. Hadwick is standing. The game also indicates this by giving a pop-up that says +1 strength. Now the reason this is happening here is because Mr. Hadwick is standing in both Cakey and Lacey's tackle zone, but also Sherbet Holmes' tackle zone. So Sherbet Holmes gives 1 assist. However, you only give assists if there are no other enemy pieces in your tackle zones, because tackle zones, they remove assists if they're both busy. So let's have a look what happens when Grumble Goat Manslapper runs over here. Now, all of a sudden, there's only a 1 die. And that's because we're now comparing Cakey and Lacey's strength directly to Mr. Hadwick, because Sherbet Holmes is no longer giving an assist. And the reason he's no longer giving an assist is because he is now standing in Grumble Goat Manslapper's tackle zone. This might be a bit confusing at first, but it's actually pretty simple. Your players are only going to help out and assist if they are not busy in another opposing piece's tackle zone. Like beforehand, Sherbet Holmes was able to annoy Mr. Hadwick here, and that meant that Cakey and Lacey got 2 dies. But now that Grumble Goat Manslapper is here being annoying, he can't help Cakey and Lacey. So Cakey and Lacey have to do it all on their own. And since they have the same strength, it's only 1 die. Here on the line, we have another situation where these Chaos Warriors here, Dr. Eggdude, Ronnie, James Dio, and Mr. the Fister, all have strength 4. Now, all of our pieces here have strength 3. So to get a 2 die, we'd have to somehow manage to get up to strength 5. We can see that Snack Ryan here will give an assist against Dr. Eggdude if Nice Mark or Sweetney were to block him, because no one else is bothering him in his tackle zones. There's only Dr. Eggdude here, so he's going to give an assist. See? And here as well. Now the reason Nice Mark isn't giving an assist is because he is in Ronnie James Dio's tackle zone. So Ronnie James Dio is being annoying to this guy. It's also important to note in this case that because there are a bunch of tackle zones here, Sweetney and Nice Mark still get their normal strength. This, of course, works the other way around too. So if Horatio Cake wants to block Vince Van Gogh for it, suddenly he has 2 dice against. And that's because Ragnar Berserker Ganger is giving an assist to Vince Van Gogh for it. So Vince Van Gogh for it has 4 strength. Over here, it's less of an issue because Sherbert Holmes has strength 4. But because of the assist, it's 1 die. Now, if only Mr. Hadwick had been here, Sherbert Holmes could have just blocked him for 2 dice easily, but that's not the case. There's one last thing, because we're talking about Bretonnians, and I thought I should mention it. The Blitzers have a skill called Dauntless, and Dauntless lets you roll a die. It's pretty straightforward. You roll a d6, which is a normal die, and add that to their strength. And if the total of the d6 and your player's strength is higher than your opponent's strength, then it counts as this piece having the same strength. So normally Ace Petrushka here has strength 3, but if he uses Dauntless and is slightly lucky, or rather not unlucky, let's see what happens. He's going to use Dauntless. It worked out great. And now all of a sudden he has 2 dice instead of 1 because he got an assist from this guy. Otherwise, if the Dauntless hadn't worked, he would have had strength 3 and an assist from this guy, which means it's 4 strength for Mr. the Fister and 3 + 1 strength for Ace Petrushka. But since his Dauntless succeeded, he suddenly had strength 4, got an assist here, and then, magic. Sweetney here, of course, isn't as lucky. We can see that it's 1 assist from Ace Petrushka, but nothing else. So it means 1 die. Nice Mark has the same problem. These are the basic building blocks for building a bashy team and killing people. Being aware of when you have an assist, so you can get the 2 die block, because you need the 2 die block if you want to injure someone. It's way less risky, and using that to your advantage. Now, for example, say Sweetney feels like, ooh, I still want to do this block. And the reason he wants to do this block is because if this piece is removed or pushed back, then suddenly Nice Mark here would have had 2 assists from both Snack Ryan and Sweetney, because Sweetney is no longer in an other opponent's tackle zone. So let's see what happens. Ooh, that's nice. Let's move that guy over there, and then we'll stay put. Because if it had just been a push and we'd followed up, then Sweetney would still be in this player's tackle zone. Now he's not, so he's free. And all of a sudden, Nice Mark has 2 dice that he can use to block, because we cleared off some pieces, giving Nice Mark some extra assists from his friends. Yay, Nice Mark. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Easy. Actually, it's not. And it might take you a while to get it into your head what you need to look for. But these are kind of the building blocks that you need to make sure that you get those 2 die blocks. Because regardless of how many other bashy skills your players have, always go for the 2 die blocks. We're not only looking to minimize risk, but we're also looking to maximize the amount of POW, defender stumbles, or both down you can inflict on your opponent. You do that by rolling more block dice, so you have more block die results to choose from. And that's everything I'm gonna cover in this episode. Like I said at the start, the next episode we'll hopefully get to look at some murder skills, because I know you guys love that. But we're also going to look at some elf bullshit. Actually, we're not going to look at elf bullshit, but we're going to look at how agility works in the game. Give you some ideas on when it's smart to pick the ball up, when it's smart to pass, and calculate what the difficulty of an agility roll actually is. And now I'm going to hand off to my face so he can say all the important YouTube stuff. Big thanks to my voice for that intro to my outro. If you like this video, why not like it, comment for suggestions on what I'm going to cover next, subscribe, or check out my live streams on Twitch. I've been cKnoor, and this is my face and my Beginner's Guide to Blood Bowl 2. I'll see you in Chapter 3. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye. You can end the... Bye.